What advice would you give to women for dating in 2023?
That's a big one. That's a large question.
Yo, welcome back to Deep in the Bag podcast, man. I got a special guest on here today. I'm so excited, man. What up, Kenna? How you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Y'all make some noise for Kenna, man. All right. So for today's podcast, we are pivoting a little bit differently. You know what I mean? So one thing about Kenna, y'all, that, man, we're going to cover through this whole one is just that high value mindset. And I know a lot of times, and I've been telling y'all every single episode, is like, the goal to life in general is you want to create a community of high frequency individuals, and Kenna is definitely one of those people. But before we even get into that, Kenna, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Great. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. Little bit out of Atlanta, actually, in McDonough in the suburbs. And when I was 10 or 11, I moved to Orange County with my family.
Okay.
So that's where I'm a half and half at this point, because I'm 27. So I've lived in half and half.
Oh, that's a good mix. That's a good mix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a little bit of Southern left in me.
So, wait, before we even proceed forward, would you ever go back to ATL?
Oh, yeah.
Oh!
I would go back to Atlanta. I think I would. The city. I don't think I'd ever go back to the suburbs.
Okay.
But I think I would go back to the city.
That's fair. That's real. See, a lot of y'all know I'm from Washington, D.C. Let me tell you, I never go back. And I loved it, but I'm good.
You see, you know what? I also don't have family there anymore, though. So if I went back to Atlanta, I would be going back with a fresh start. I wouldn't be going back to a ton of family or community that I had there, if that makes sense.
Yes, that is a game changer to everything. So let's not even hold back. Let's start diving right into it. So when it comes to self-love, do you believe you love yourself?
Yeah, I do. But I think it took me a long time to get there.
And that is where we want to start. You know, everybody got that. At least for myself, I know I got that beginning story that kind of got me to a place where I just was like, yo, you got to start working on you. But do you have that beginning story? Do you have something that sparked it that just was like, yo, I got to make a change?
Yeah, I think honestly it started. So I am a child of divorce.
Okay.
And I think that people react differently to divorce, obviously. But I think for me, what kind of happened after the divorce was I had a lot of, I was really wanting a lot of male validation, because I think I saw in my childhood, I saw a lot of female figures in my life who were looking for male validation to kind of fulfill them. And I don't think I had a ton of male validation from my male figures in my life either. And so I kind of realized in high school and college how important it was to me that a man thought I was cool or attractive or liked me, liked my personality. I cared so much, and I wasn't looking at all at, do I like this person? I could have cared less. I could have been I would have thought this person was not compatible with me at all, and I still would have been I want you to like me. And I would date you just so that I knew that you liked me. And I dated somebody in college, at the beginning of college, who I madly fell in love with. It was kind of first love that we all have. And when that ended, the rug kind of got pulled out from under me. I didn't expect it to happen, and it all happened for completely the right reasons. But when it happened, I definitely got the rug kind of swept up from under me, and then I realized I need to make a change, because I think I relied so heavily on that emotionally. And I didn't like the person that I became with it. It became that everything else in my life didn't matter, and the only thing that mattered was that relationship didn't work out, which was so toxic of my own mindset.
First of all, that is a great story, and I'm happy you got yours locked into where that change happened. There's so many questions I have, but I want to definitely share something. Y'all will be wondering, what about you? So for me, it was honestly I was turning up and getting lit all the time. And then one day I had a friend who, it was so crazy. I didn't even think, it's like you said though, you going through the motion of you right now are able to explain why you thought the way you did because of your experience today.
Yeah.
But in that moment, you couldn't scan back this far
No,
to be
not at
able to
all.
do that.
Correct.
Like, and that is something I want y'all to really understand about that self-awareness with growth, is that it's something that you can look back on once you actually got the knowledge to understand why you did. So like, that's why I'm not giving no context to mine. And like, I'll never forget, I was sitting in the couch one day and I'm about to go out that weekend. I'm about to get lit too. And my friend called me and she's like, can I ask you a question? I'm like, yeah, what? What's up? Like, what are you doing with your life? And I was an arrogant SOB. And I was like, who are you talking to? And they was just like, can I just be real that like right now it's kind of like you just in the middle of the ocean and you just treading water. But like if you continue what you're doing, you're going to drown. Wow. And I'll never forget like sitting back, hearing that. I was like, you don't know me. Hung up the phone. I pondered on it for like 2 days. And I was like, oh, nah, I got to change my life. Like, and that was how like mine began for myself. But okay, so back to you though. So you realized like you was always seeking that validation, and then you needed to figure out for yourself what was the next place to go. Like, where did you start when it came to working on yourself? Did you start with books? Did you start with some self-reflect? Like, where did you start at? What was the now that catalyst?
I started with therapy.
Oh, okay.
Which was, you know, that was a huge one. Was actually, I'm with a life coach instead of a therapist, which I personally prefer. I went to therapy when I was a kid about the divorce, and it's just a different practice. And
what would you say if you? Now I know you aren't a doctor and but what would you say you feel the difference is?
I think a therapist tells you what's going on. I think a life coach helps you figure it out yourself. And I think that I love, and I'm still with this life coach on and off now the last 7 years. And she can be more blunt, or they could be more blunt with you. There's not as much rules or guidelines as there is in therapy, where they have to stay a little bit more neutral. And B, they really help you come to the resolution so that when you figure it out, you really feel like you put in that work, as opposed to somebody else put in that work to tell you what happened.
Ooh, that is such a valid thing that I feel like you're progressing forward yourself, even with that assistance.
Totally.
And so with this life coach, did they, like, I guess, what do you feel like, do you remember, like, what was the first thing they kind of made you aware of that you was like, oh, yeah, I got to work on this? I think
it was the male validation.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Like, I think it was that. Like, I think she was like, you're really putting this so heavily on a relationship that I honestly didn't want to be in myself either. But I, for some reason, when they ended it, I was like, well, now I still really want to be in that relationship. And it was because of the validation. It was also diving into my childhood and like, how did that come about? What were behaviors or patterns that I was seeing in my life and in the community around me that kind of left my brain to seeking that validation? And so it was diving into those little bits, because ultimately too, like being in the South, you know, I was only there until I was 11, but it's a very different culture there, and how females act in relationship with men is also very different. And, you know, there was a long time where if somebody gave me a compliment, a man, like said I was beautiful, I would be like, oh, no, I'm not. Like, no. Because in more Southern culture, I think it's more normal to be timid and be more like, oh, no. Like, to really not think so highly of yourself. So I had to really reframe that. And when somebody says it now, I'll be like, thank you, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Oh, see? Okay. Community, because you spoke on that. Just the community you had. When you feel like you became aware, like you got your life coach, you're starting to work on yourself, you're starting to learn, do you think you got, like, because you started to change.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you got any pushback, family, friends, or just with the way your mind started changing and you started looking at things, you started valuing yourself? Do you feel like something shifted there?
Totally. I would say with family, it primarily changed in the sense that I realized a lot of the things that, the behaviors that I had kind of created was a generational behavior. And so there were a lot of boundaries that I had to set and a lot of hard conversations that I had to have with family members. And I think that was really difficult for some family members who were so used to me letting things slide and being a people pleaser and all. And so then when I was kind of not fighting back, but when I was kind of like, no, I got to set this boundary for myself because this isn't healthy for me, or like, hey, we need to have this conversation because, you know, how you acted has now culminated into this. It's not your fault, but I need to talk about it with you. It was really hard. Primarily with family. I've always been very, very blessed. Up, like right when I went into college, I found a really solid core group of women. I still have those women.
That's lit.
So my friendships never really altered. I feel like my friendships, if anything, have challenged me more to be more confident and to be more self-aware and to be a higher value person.
Hey, we going right into it. You said that higher value. So, like, well, I do know a lot of people, they struggle with people pleasing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a root cause to that? Do you think it just is because of the way you brought up, you know, kind of trying to love yourself? Or do you think, like, when it comes to people pleasing, that, like, there is something there that's just like everyone, you feel like kind of, it's not that we all have it in common, but you know, that similar trait. Do you?
I think all of us have it in a different sense, for sure. Like, I think some of us more than others, and some of us might react differently than others in how we feel people pleasing. Like, some people might become more avoidant because they really care. Or some people might get closer to you and try to get more clingy because they really care. You know, I think everyone reacts in a different way. And I think everyone has a little bit of it. I do think that ultimately how you act and how you feel is completely curated from your childhood and how you're raised and what you're surrounded by. And I think only you can decide to break that chain.
Yes. And even with your change of like that generational like change and that curse that you gotta like break, it's actually crazy to me, because I know when I was working on myself, that was one of the big things that happened too. Like, it's not as if, for me, it wasn't as if my family turned on me, but it just felt like every decision I made, they was like, oh, so you think you're different?
Right.
Oh, you think you're better? And you're sitting back like, no, it's not that. But at the time, I can explain this now, just how Kenna did in the beginning, where it's like, now they get it. I've provided them the experience to see what your life could look like when you decide to work on you.
Yeah.
You know, but at the time, it don't come off
it's
like
so
that.
hard.
It's like,
well, because they have to face their demons too, and they didn't necessarily ask to. Whereas you were like, I'm ready to face my demons. I want to, but in order for me to do it, I also have to talk to you, and they have to be willing to face theirs. And so, there's always that pushback, but if they're willing to be open about it, then they end up getting to break generational change too. And I think that's what's really special. Like, my mom and I have a really, really great relationship now.
Same.
Because we had a lot of really hard conversations, and she was eventually, willing to open up and have those with me, and I think both her and I have broken generational change now.
First of all, that is amazing, and secondly, I'm right in your boat. So if everybody is always wondering where will those hard conversations lead, yes, in the beginning it is going to be tough, but over time, it is well worth it, with just that like different type of energy you get to have with now, even like your mom or like your family. Okay, so now we're Kenna today.
Yeah.
You're in love with yourself. You put in the work. But you know what? Before we go away from that, did you ever... So you decided to go get a life coach and a therapist. You tested them both out. You decided to go the route of a life coach. Do you feel like there was something inside of you at the time that like you just wanted to be different? You just didn't appreciate how like you looked at your life and how you valued yourself. You know what I mean? Like,
I think I felt like I was living for other people, and I feel like I was so focused on others that I wasn't living an authentic life for myself at all. And so I think there was a part of me that felt really stuck and really unhappy. Like, I was saying yes to all of these things for all these other people, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm saying yes to. I'm just saying it because I want to be a good person. And I'm not saying it because I want to do it. And so I think there was a part of me that really wanted to shift into doing things that felt really good to me. And kind of bringing in that, which I know you and I have talked about, but that selfishness, which like everyone needs to have. And I think it's hard to talk about because people think it comes from an ego-based place. But you do really have to put yourself first, always. Of course, that's combated with finding a balance of compromising in relationship and whatnot. But like, regardless, your mental health, what you love, what you value, you always need to go back to that. So
I love that. And I'm happy you just mentioned that next word, relationships.
Yes.
So one of the things I know for myself, yes, I am everything you said. I'm definitely selfish with myself, love myself, have put in endless work. I'm continually growing and learning new things every day. But I know for myself, one of my struggles is relationships, because now I believe for myself, it's quite easy to tame your own energy.
Sure.
But now when you open the door and let this other person's energy into your life, 'cause especially when you think and operate like us, like this person becomes a part of your, like, not your functionality. They don't complete you or anything, but like, just talk about, like, first, let's start there with relationships. Like, do you feel like it is a struggle now, or do you feel like
No, I mean, I think when you get into a relationship, that relationship is a mirror to you. And I think that mirror sometimes is going to come with stuff that you maybe haven't touched either. It's like, because again, a part of life is that we're always loving, like we're always learning and growing. And yeah, I love myself. Is there more that I could love about myself? Sure. Like, I'm sure there's even more that you could go to. And I think what a blessing in relationships is that they are mirrors. So they are these things of like, oh, what's that behavior that I'm doing that I didn't notice at all because I was by myself and nobody was calling it out. So I think it can be tricky in that sense because you have to be willing to want that and open that up too. And also, it can be tricky to your point of like, once you have that independence, how do you bring somebody else into it and their values? And like, again, you do have to have a compromise. Like, you're not going to find somebody that it's just everything aligns. If you did, that would be crazy and not realistic.
Yes.
And they're probably lying to you. If everything is working perfectly.
I'm so happy, honestly, you said that, because sometimes you just got to be real. And it's the same concept of if a person is like, I can fall in love in a week.
Right.
You got some work to do.
Yeah.
If you can fall in love in a week, you just got some work to do internally, and that's okay.
And I think it's just that those people haven't done the work to realize, like, it's not love, it's this intimacy you're craving. If you're falling in love in a week, it's because you're just craving intimacy and this person is giving it to you, so it feels really nice, and so you probably do in your head, you're like, yeah, I love them. But that's not true, genuine love.
Yes.
So I say that because I don't want people to feel bad when they have those feelings, because that's a part of learning and growing too. Like, I've been there before where I'm like, oh my God, I've seen this person for 2 weeks and I'm absolutely obsessed. What is this about? And it's like, oh, I just want intimate. Like, I just want to feel close to somebody, or I want a connection. Like, if you really dive into the root, you find what it really is that you feel.
I agree. Now, thinking of that loneliness, though, and wanting that intimacy, when you are working on yourself and you start growing and developing, you notice red flags right away.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, oh, if I even get to the next question, noticing red flags, how do you maneuver those now compared to before?
You know what? It's actually something I'm still feel like I'm working on. And I do feel I notice red flags quickly. But at the same time, I think there's a balance where you have to note them, but not force yourself to cut off any kind of opportunity for a relation. I think you and I have talked about this. Any opportunity for a relationship, because nobody's perfect, and like something that might seem like a red flag on the second date, you might get to know that person in a month and it really actually isn't as large as it is. You don't know. The reality is you don't know, and you have to just I think that's why it's so important not to fall in love so fast, not to jump in so fast. Get to know these people. Like, take more time. I think people are really eager to like figure out if this is going to be it super fast. But I actually think if you take your time, that allows you to figure out, is this a red flag, or is this something that's going to work and culminate into something?
That is phenomenal. And I'm actually happy you even mentioned that, because I want y'all to know I took a learning point from that, because I'm cutthroat. You know what I mean? Like, in my mind, I feel like I've covered enough to like of myself, and this is where it's important to know you're not the main character in other people's lives, because like you for yourself could do work on things, but it's like you meet somebody and maybe they've never met anything like you before.
Totally.
And so on that first day, you're right, it is a red flag to me, but in a month it probably went away. It just was they had to like get used to me too.
Yeah, who knows? And also, of course, this is to say, like, there are some red flags. And sometimes I try to steer away from the term red flags, too, because I think what
would you use?
Scares people. Non-negotiables. Because here's the thing. Something that's a quote-unquote red flag to you might not be for somebody else. And I think it's ultimately, are we compatible? And so it's like, what are getting really, really clear with yourself on what are my non-negotiables? Something that I really want in a relationship that I'm not willing to negotiate. And then there's like these mid-negotiables. Like, okay, what's something that like I would like to have, but also isn't like desperately crucial for me? And if I found the right person who hit, these other things that I really had a strong connection with them, I'm okay with. Because there are some red flags that I think you can see, and the first couple of dates where you're like, for sure, this isn't the right situation for me. And I think trust that.
I agree. Like, my only thing with the non-negotiables, red flags the analogy I always like to use is just that the reason why self-work is so important too is because you get accountability.
Yeah.
And one thing I do notice that happen with the red flags thing is like people will see that tornado forming in the sky and it's coming and you start being like, oh, is it a tornado? It's like, oh, it hits the ground, sucks you up, beats the shit out of you. And you sit back, you like, God damn, I hate the world. But it's like, no. You saw the damn tornado, but you waited until it sucked you.
You
up
ignored it. Right.
Yes.
And that's where you have to be cautious. Like, there are some things where it's like, I could have spotted that, or I did spot it and I ignored it. And that's where, again, you have to do the self-work, because you also have to be okay if that happens. Dating is like, here's the thing. You can do all the work on yourself. I actually just had a situation like 1 or 2 weeks ago where it kind of like rocked me off my normal rhythm of how I feel with dating, and now I'm fine. I feel totally fine. But it's like, you're going to have a couple days where you're like, shoot, yeah, I kind of allowed a red flag to walk on through. And like, that's going to happen no matter how much you love yourself, no matter how much work you've done. Sometimes it just happens. And I think people need to be more willing to make mistakes and be okay with it and give themselves grace. It's a part of it.
Definitely when you're dealing with other people, you got to give yourself some grace.
Sometimes you don't know.
You really don't. And it's like you won't know unless you take the risk, right?
Right.
See, that is great. Now, for a person, especially for women who right now watching this, that's like, damn, Kenna, I need that type of mindset. But they also could be scared with the point that if you do start working on yourself, maybe your options do become a little bit more limited.
Very
because
small.
I believe we would agree that more relationships work as toxic because they take less work than a really good relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to be real. So like, what is your perspective on those times where you honestly might be lonely?
Yeah.
Because of the point that you're starting to see, especially when you first work on yourself, I personally feel like the energy you put out is the energy you do attract. And so when you're initially working on yourself, it's like you may have a positive outlook on where you want to be, but you're still kind of in the dirt, still trying to grind your way out, and like, so you're still attracting those type of people. So like, how do you feel in those cases where you actually might got to be alone for a while? Like,
I think allow yourself to feel all of those feelings. If you're angry right now, be angry. If you're bitter, be bitter. If you're sad or lonely, trying to force yourself to not have those feelings is only going to make it worse. Trying to be like, oh God, I wish I was positive right now. I'm usually so positive about this. I'm usually so hopeful. The more that you do that, the more your brain's like, no, you're not. You're feeling like crap right now. Like, you don't feel good. And I think you should allow yourself to feel that and then be very cognizant with yourself of like, if I am feeling that, of course that's the energy I'm putting out. So maybe I pause on dating. Like, I genuinely right now, like, I'm paused.
Okay.
Like, as of 2 days ago, because and again, who knows for how long? Could be for 2 weeks, could be for a couple months.
It's just how you feel
just
right
because
now.
I was like, you know what, I'm actually like, I'm feeling toward dating, I'm feeling a little bit of like I'm feeling like I want to do a little bit of work on XYZ with myself. Nothing that I haven't touched before, but more just like, oh, this is the attitude I'm kind of feeling, and I don't want to bring that into a dating situation. So like, let yourself be lonely, and I think embrace that. I think so much power and so much growth comes from loneliness, even though it feels really scary to go into. But that's where the magic happens.
Yes.
Is being lonely and self-soothing and self-healing. Because if you're lonely, it's because a part of you is still maybe not happy with yourself. Because when you're really happy with how you're living your day, you don't need that other person.
Do you feel like that other person can complete you?
No. I don't think anyone can complete you.
They can only compliment you.
Only compliment you. I'm like, I have been riding on this Harry Styles thing that he said at a concert, which is ridiculous, but he said, fill up your own cup and let them love the overflow. And I think that's so accurate.
That is my favorite line, by the way.
It's so accurate. I think no one can complete you. I hate it when people are like, my better half, or, this person like is my whole life. No one can be your whole life. My grandma used to always say this. She was like, your grandfather could die at any second. I have to be okay with my life. And the reality is that could happen this sounds so morbid, but that could happen at any time. Someone could leave from their own choice or not from their own choice. And you have to, of course, grieve and mourn and like have your feelings about it. You need to
Yes.
take that time. Makes sense that you get attached to that person the longer they're in your life, but you do need to love who you are and the life that you lead while you're with them.
Hold up, man. Hey, go ahead. So look, we're in LA, because you know what? I know y'all all know that's where I'm at right now, and you got this mindset here in this city, and a lot of people always talk about LA has the most horrific dating scene. It's so tough here. Like, it's everybody just wants to do one. Just get a world. What are your thoughts on the dating life in LA? It can be from a mentality point. It can be from everything. Give me what you got.
You know what? I think it's all in your mentality. I think the more that people are like, God, it sucks dating here and it's horrific and people are awful and their intentions are horrible, the more that's what you're going to get, personally. And that's why, again, if you're in that mentality, pause. Take a second and get back into into a happier mindset. Like when I first started dating again post my relationship ending, I was like, this is going to be great. I haven't gotten to know a new person in a long time. Like, I get to try on new people and see how it fits on a date. I get to know somebody. I was so excited. Like, I was like, I get to know these people, and even if it doesn't work out, who cares? I'm getting to know a human's life and how they live, and I can always, from every date that I had gone on when I was in that mindset, I was like, I learned something from this, or like I gained something. Like, oh, I really like that this person is into this music. I forgot I'm also into this music, and I haven't touched it in a while. Now I get to have that, which is great, and I get to like bring that back into my life. Or like, oh, this person, like I dated somebody who was I went on a couple dates with somebody who was not romantically matched, but who was doing all of these incredible things for me.
Okay.
Within 3 dates, like incredible, like sending me stuff in priority mail, like always setting up the dates in a timely manner, like really like showing up beyond the bare minimum. Like he was just doing the most and so nice and put so much energy. And I was like, oh, this feels really nice. Like some of the things he was doing, like being spontaneous or sending me something out of the blue, I was like, oh, that's something I didn't even realize I really liked and might want in my future relationship. Great, noted. And then I get to take that even though that person didn't fit me long term. You know what I mean? So I think if you have that outlook of this is great, and until I'm meeting that perfect match for me that I know in my head like is going to come, why don't I just enjoy it? I actually don't think it's that horrific. Now,
okay.
I have here, and this is why I'm on pause. Like the last 2 weeks, I had a couple situations where I was like getting into that mindset of like, gosh, this is hard. Well, I was like, what's going on here? Or I didn't expect that. Or like somebody did something that I totally was unexpected. And I was like, I'm shifting into this mindset that like all men are the worst or like all this or that, which I don't believe. And so I'm going to take a pause until I get back into this mindset of like, I'm excited. I get to know somebody. And regardless of if it works out or not, it's just a great opportunity to get yourself out there and have good energy come in and learn from it.
I love that. No, for real. Like just like when you learn new people, it's like so crazy how much of like more of experience you get when it comes to just dealing with others, like even with relationships and things like that, because we all truly do bring something different to the table.
Yeah.
And all of us, like, even if your love language and my love language is acts of service,
right,
your acts of service and my acts of service are totally different.
Yeah.
We aren't just compatible because it's like, oh,
Totally.
we're acts of service. Like, and so no, I'm so happy that you've learned that through that whole thing. And then even through your current mindset, like you still can have those moments. I'm happy you're showing that human side that people also need to recognize when you're working on yourself. Is like, you're just more aware, but it doesn't change the point you're still human and you have emotions.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest misconception when you're looking at like life coaches or people who are on social media talking about relationships or stuff, is like sometimes people forget to add in the part of like, there's also, even no matter how much work you do and no matter how much love you have for yourself, like there's also going to be weeks or months where you're like, I'm upset, and I like my inner child's coming out, and I'm upset and I'm pissed and I like wish I wasn't in this situation. But the self-work, if you do the self-work, you can look at that and be like, this is just a phase that I'm in, and I'm going to trust that, and I'm just going to like let myself be with myself and process those emotions right now and not loop somebody else into it while I'm trying to figure it out.
Oh, yes. Okay, so Kenna, bring us home. This is it. The hoorah. What advice would you give for someone who is chasing after their dreams, but also looking to be in a relationship? You know, because just sometimes, like, especially when you got to be selfless with yourself and your time, like, that's what that dream is usually for. It's like, it's hard to pull people in, but then you also do have that love, passion, affection, and those desires that, like, it'll be also amazing to be able to build with somebody. So just like, where's your head at there?
Someone I used to work for, Jay Shetty, he always says this, and I always agree with it. You can have everything, but it's not all going to work at once. And so, like, you could, and this goes for people who are married, like, you could have the relationship, be chasing the dream, want the money, like, whatever it is, and, like, not everything's going to be at 100 at the same time.
Yes.
And trusting that, and just being okay with that, because that would be a lot to have it also all at 100 all at the same time.
Yes, it would be.
And then never sacrificing on your dream just for the relationship.
Hey, Kenna, get on up, man. Y'all make some noise. Kenna, I appreciate you so much for coming through today. I truly enjoyed this podcast with you. You know, like, I know your next relationship is going to be your best one. You feel me? Or not, but who cares?
Who
right?
knows?
We just learned it. You feel
Who
me?
knows?
Yes, and until the next time, y'all, we out.
Bye.